Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig.
And I'm Sam.
And today we're going to discuss how the Tyranids and the Iron Warriors, or Iron Hands, went 3-0 in a doubles RTT tournament. So stay tuned, we'll go over our list, the format of how the Tyranids managed to unite with the Iron Warriors, or the Iron Warriors used the Tyranids to go 3-0 and win this tournament. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we dive in, just want to quickly remind you guys to like and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on our content. And if you want to support the growth of this channel, do consider becoming a member. A lot of perks for you guys, like extra videos and a Discord channel. So look forward to that. Down in the description, they've got everything there. Now with all that out, let's dive into today's video. So this was a doubles tournament at 2,000 points. So there's some basic rules we're going to cover just so you guys have a bit of a background on how this went. Each team had 2,000 points. You had to have 1,000 points per side. You couldn't have, 1,100 on one and 900 on another. You could do a max of 3 detachments total. So I could have used 2 and Sam used 1, or vice versa. We did just 1 each because that's easy. Each player had a War Master, so a Warlord that they granted the kill points, the extra bonus kill points for Slay the Warlord, which is in Assassinate, specific secondary. Didn't really come up, but still something had that. We could each take our own relics and Warlord traits as normal, and we're basically just 2 separate armies working together. So a friendly unit for me only counted as my models, a friendly unit for Sam only counted as his models. None of the shenanigans of mixing and matching psychic powers and rules, things like that.
It created some interesting scenarios where we realized that certain units were not lookout sirred because they were surrounded by someone else's faction.
By friendly models, which we're protecting them, but at the same time we're not protecting them. Yeah, it's a weird situation where those came up. And then for secondaries, and primary obviously, we worked to score those together, with the exception if we took a chapter specific secondary. Space Marines are the only one who has one. Only that codex or army could score that secondary. So we'll talk about that when we get into the secondaries we actually took, but just something to do. And then if you're curious, the missions we played, first mission was sweep and clear, second mission was battle lines, and the third mission was priority target. So now we'll go over to the list of how the Tyranids and the Iron Hands managed to do this.
Right. So my list was a patrol. I had 2 HQs. I had a captain with a mastercrafted power axe and a plasma pistol, and I spent a command point on him to give him or to take the Paragon of Iron stratagem, which allows him to take an extra Warlord trait that has to be picked from the Iron Hands Warlord trait table. So for the Codex Warlord trait, I took Rites of Battle, which gives him a 6-inch bubble of objectives secured to any unit he rocks in with. And target protocols from the Iron Hands list. So in the shooting phase, I could nominate 1 unit and give them 1 reroll hit roll, 1 reroll wound roll, and 1 reroll damage roll. And he was rocking around with the Devastators. I'll just go into them because they were, for the whole tournament, they were basically inseparable. So the Devastators were in a drop pod. They had 4 multi-meltas, 4 dudes with bolters, and a cherub. So the captain was tooling around with them, giving out rerolls and telling them to shoot better. My other HQ was a Master of the Forge, just with a chainsword and a bolt gun, and another command point spent to give him the Hero of the Chapter stratagem, which allows him also to take a Warlord trait. So he has Adept of the Omnissiah, which means that in addition to awakening the machine spirit and giving vehicles +1 to hit, he could also heal 4 wounds to a single vehicle, combining the Warlord trait and the Master of the Forge just healing flat 3 damage a turn. Which we'll talk about it later, but it actually turned out that never once in any of the 3 games did he actually have to heal a vehicle.
Not at all.
Which was kind of funny. For my troops, I just took a single 6-man tactical squad. For my elites, I took a Redemptor Dreadnought. So this was one of my Leviathans because I don't actually have a Redemptor Dreadnought model, but they're on the same base size. And I took Approximating War Gear. So he had Stormbolters, the Plasma Cannon, and the Onslaught Gatling Cannon in addition to his Fist. And then the other Dreadnought that I took was 2 more command points down. So this was a really
command point heavy. Yeah.
It was not a lot of models, but it sucked up a lot of command points at pregame. I took a Relic Contemptor, so that was a point to take the Relic Contemptor, and then a point to give him March of the Ancients, which crucially made him a character. And because Contemptor Dreadnoughts are down from 8th edition 12 wounds to 9th edition 9 wounds, this means that he can be screened and protected by Look Out, Sir. So he had an extra attack in close combat as well, which never came up once, but the big thing was that he was now a character and could be protected. And he had a Cyclone Missile Launcher and 2 las cannons.
Twin las cannons.
Yeah, 2 twin las cannons, I'm sorry.
No,
so
it was, I mean, yeah, you provided the punch. So for the Tyranids army, I did the Swarm Lord. He had the Horror and Paroxysm, so psychic powers, nothing too crazy, just some support ones. For the Neurothrope, I paid an extra CP to give him 2 Warlord traits. I took Swarm Leader rerolls and Strategic Adaptation, which proved to be crucial in 2 of the 3 games. And then he also had the Void Crown, which allows him to cast a psychic power as well as doing a psychic action. And for his psychic power, he took Catalyst. He also had Psychic Scream, but I never used Psychic Scream because the Void Crown lets you learn an extra one. Never used it at all. It was purely just Catalyst and Smite. But that's the HQs. Troops, 2 groups of 16 Gene Stealers with 4 Acid Maws, 1 big block of 27 Termagants, primarily to protect the Neurothrope and hold an objective, and then 3 Lictors, because this is probably the last tournament where Lictors could still be useful for the Tyranids. Very simple. We will go over now into some secondaries we took as a team, remember. Secondaries we took, again, I was bringing Lictors, so we took Retrieve Octaria's data. Easy 12 points for the Tyranids. I think between 3 Lictors and Sam's tactical squad, I think they did Retrieve Octaria's data the first turn.
Right, the first turn, because they'd be sitting back in a corner holding another objective.
So that was an easy thing for them to do, while the Lictors did it every other turn. We then took Oath of the Moment. So this is one Sam had to do on his own.
Right. So Oath of the Moment is one of the secondaries out of the Space Marine Codex. It is 4 points a turn, potentially 2 points for having a unit wholly within 6 inches of the center, 1 point for not falling back from combat and not failing a morale check, and 1 point for killing a vehicle, a monster, or a character. And so with the spread of missions that we played, 2/3 of the missions had an objective in the center. So what I did is, using Drop Pod Assault with the Drop Pod, I just launched the Captain and the Devastators into the center of the field. The Captain had the objective secured bubble, so even if you did get troops on, the Captain and the Devastators could contest it, and then also that would put them with their 24-inch range well in range to shoot a lot of the things that they would have wanted to shoot turn 1 anyway. So they were an obnoxious block dropped right on the center, which immediately started killing things and scoring points.
Yeah, it proved to be a very valuable asset to Army. We'll talk about more of the whole Army overfield, but yeah, so Oath of the Moment, Sam handled that one perfectly every game we took it. And then the last one was a bit of a, mix-up of what we chose, but I think we went with Psychic Interrogation every time, or Mental Interrogation, whichever one it is. It plays well with Oath. Oh no, it does, because you need to pretty much be in the center of the board in order to cast that one off. 24 inches to get to a character. Sam was taking the middle, I was taking the middle. I also could have taken Psychic Ritual, which also plays well with the center of the board, because again, you gotta be within the 6 inches of the center in order to do it. And it pretty much was just, all right, Neurothrope, do your thing and get us some secondaries. Now for against our list, there were a few that they could take, but really our list, not even by design, was very good at denying secondaries. Bring It Down was 6 points. No Prisoners was 7 points. The only big one was because of the doubles special rule that each player had a Warlord. Each player's Warlord counted as 4 points for Assassinate. And because we had a total of 5 characters in our army, thanks to your Dreadnought being one, it was an easy max out of 15 points. And no one actually took that against us. I don't know why. I mean, we clearly went over saying, hey, we have 5 characters. You can max it out on us, but no one did it.
Yes, thank goodness for small mercies.
I actually, now think about it, I don't think we ever lost more than one or two characters.
I didn't lose any of my characters.
Ever?
I think I came, or no, I think I lost the captain once.
You lost the captain once, and I lost Swarmy once. Twice technically, but it was the end of the game and didn't matter. So yeah, you know, actually no, I lost Swarmy every game. Yeah, I did. That's typical though. He's aggressive. So those secondaries. Now we'll go into more in depth of how the play style for army worked. So again, like Sam said, his drop pod was key, and I would probably say the MVP of the list. I mean, dropping that down, it works so well with Iron Hands specifically because you ignore the moving and shooting penalty. So your Devastators are way better than any other armies. Plus, you get the rerolls. Even without the captain, they would have had rerolls to hit coming in, but the captain just made all that much better. And target protocol.
I know.
That,
it's really good. I kind of botched. I took it in that Crusher Stampede list and then forgot to use it. And now I remembered to use it. It's really good because rerolling, so you reroll ones to hit in the Devastator Doctrine. Any turn after, the captain lets you reroll ones to hit. So that's already just like, and you get to reroll 1, 2 if you roll a 2. It's just you're really guaranteeing almost all of your shots are going to go through. And then with a multi-melta, even against bigger targets, you're probably going to be wounding on 4s at worst. So you're still getting a lot of wounds through. And that's just so much damage to be able to spit out turn 1.
And then the free reroll on the damage roll too.
Yes.
I mean, I think it was every turn you had a 1 that you turned into a 4 or 5.
Definitely.
And yeah, so that was the big thing, is that Devastator, that drop pod sitting in the middle was obviously the first thing that happened every game. Then we had my part of the game, which is where the Swarmlord commands 16 Gene Stealers a turn to send themselves at the board, basically to kill any close combat threats and hold the opponent back while Sam did the big damage. Now, the Gene Stealers killed a lot in combat, but they never lived, ever. But they did their job of taking some objectives and stalling out the opponent.
Yeah, it was a really well executed Alpha Strike that, with the exception of the third game, which we'll get into, works exceedingly well.
Yeah, every game it worked out perfectly, and it helped with strategic adaptation, the Warlord trait that us Tyranids have. So we could deploy very aggressively and bait our opponent out in the open. I mean, I told them we have redeploy. You know what's going to happen, but we could deploy very passively, and your drop pod can come in turn 1, not right away, but just whenever it was our turn. So we could play very defensively, and if we went second, fine, hold back for a turn, take away the firepower, and then the next turn we be aggressive, or if we find out we're going first, okay, deploy aggressive, drop pod, Gene Stealers, everything. It was a great power combo.
A wombo combo.
Yeah, so I was really happy with how everything turned out. Your stuff, your Redemptor Dread did the first 2 games. Again, we'll talk about each game individually, but the first 2 games, nothing.
Right. It was kind of a symptom of the way my list was constructed. So a big chunk of my army was in reserve in the drop pod. So really the only things I would be deploying on the table were the Contemptor Dreadnought, which was a character, Master of the Forge, which was a character, 6 Tactical Marines, and then the Redemptor/Leviathan Dreadnought. So what this meant is that the Tactical Marines would be hidden behind cover so they couldn't be shot, and the Contemptor and the Master of the Forge would be screened because they're characters. So really probably the biggest thing aside from Swarmlord that anybody could shoot on my side of the table was the Redemptor Dreadnought, which meant that he would move forward and then get lit up. And generally it wouldn't be like he got nuked, but it would get like 1 or 2 wounds just over the 13 that he had, and he would die in most of the games before he could do anything.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, he pulled his weight in that third game. He absolutely pulled his weight and made up for it, but yeah, it is what it is. And then the last little bit, the Lictors popping in, taking their objectives, doing their thing. I mean, you couldn't complain with the free victory points they basically handed out to us. So now, let's go over the games more in depth. We've talked a little bit about each one, but we'll go over each game a little more in depth, give us, how the game went, some impressions. Third game was awesome, but we'll get to that one. So, first game. It was against Admech and Sisters combination. The Admech was very mechanized. They had 20 Skitarii, but they had 3 Onagers and 2 Iron Striders. At 1,000 points, it was a lot of devastation. Swarmy did not survive very long at all. Luckily, we went first that turn.
Yeah.
So I was able to deploy aggressively, do some damage. Swarmy yeeted 1 unit and then just obliterated. The Sisters part of their army was very combat orientated.
Yeah. It was Bloody Rose. So they had, I think, was it 2 units of Repentia?
2 max Repentia units, yeah.
And then Mortifiers. And in the Rhino, they had the ones with the Stormbolters, and then their version of Devastators, right?
They had Retributors and Dominions, I believe it is. Yeah, so it was a very aggressive, combat-heavy army. But, that is what it is. We kind of outshot them. Again, deployed defensively, redeployed once we won the roll-off, and the Devastators were big MVPs in that. Gene Stealers punched hard, but they didn't really kill much. I shouldn't say. I'll say the Gene Stealers killed 10 Skitarii, and then they did murder the Retributors and Dominions. We did bait them to hop out of the Rhino. Gene Stealers murdered them. 1 Gene Stealer survived. That's all of my list that lived that game was 1 single Gene Stealer. But Sam's Devastators.
Yeah, turn 1, they dropped the Mortifiers. I think they dropped an Onager that turn 2. They shot, their bolters, and then they were immediately on the objective. So right off the bat, the Mortifiers were really scary because they could have easily, gone forward and just obliterated one of the big blocks of Gene Stealers.
Well, yeah, that was the thing that saved me is they were protecting the front line for the Skitarii. So my Gene Stealers would have had to charge them. They had 2 heavy flamers on each. Their Gene Stealers weren't going to make it, but because you were able to nuke them very, very efficiently, that gave them, the Gene Stealers, a path to charging.
Right.
So it was good. We did not, the score at the end was 61-31. We did not score turn 5, so that's why the scores are a little lower than normal.
Oh, it is also important to note that in addition to just killing a lot of things, the Devastators also got charged by almost like a full strength, or it wasn't full strength, but they got charged by a squad of Repentia with numbers sufficient that they shouldn't have survived the charge phase. But I was rolling clutch on their 6-up feel no pain, so they were able to hang in there and tank a bunch of eviscerators to the face and just keep them locked down and continuing to score.
They had, 30-some attacks coming at you, and you lost 5?
Right.
5 tactical Marines, basically?
Right. Yeah, they chunked through the ablative meat shields that I drag around to throw in front of the multi-meltas.
So, yeah, that was, your dice, those dice rolls right there. He had some really hot 6s on his dice rolls, which were shutting down my psychic powers and making long bomb charges.
For his miracle dice for most of the game was a 6.
Every single miracle die was a 6 pretty much. But you countered with your 6s and it came out in the end. So that was game 1. It was a lot of fun. I was really worried when we deployed up against it that there was just a lot of firepower. But we came out with a win. So now in game 2, this was versus Orcs and Necrons. It was a very buggy heavy list. I think he had 6 buggies or something. None of the ignoring line of sight shooty ones, but bunch of buggies. And then it was paired with a combat Necron, so big block of 6 Wraiths, Score Peck Destroyer, Score Peck Lord, and then a big block of 10 Tesla Carbine Immortals, which Gene Stealers are very scared of. It was good. It was a close game. Sam did a lot of damage wiping out those buggies.
There was lots of, it was nice. It was a target-rich environment for all of my anti-tank shooting. So we slapped quite a few buggies out of the air. We killed a Def Kill a War Trike with the Contemptor, which again, that was where we ran into that weird, if it had been a normal list, he would have been screened, but because technically the Necrons were not screening the Def Kill a War Trike, I was just like, oh, my Contemptor can see him.
Can slide right in.
Yeah, and just put 4 las cannons in his face, shot a jet down. There were a lot of vehicles to be killed this list.
A lot of vehicles. My Gene Stealers did not do much at all. This game was almost all on Sam. Gene Stealers killed some Score Peck Destroyers, and they killed
like 2 wraiths,
3 wraiths. I mean,
they killed 3 wraiths, and one came back on.
One came back, and then he healed another one. One came back from reanimation. He healed another one. So it's like I did one, but man, I put almost. It had to have been after the Swarm Leader rerolls and Relentless Flurry for 6s exploding. I probably put 100 attacks into this unit of 6 wraiths, and that 4-up Invone he just demolished that roll. It was insane how little damage I did. And I mean, really, the Gene Stealers just stalled. That game, the Gene Stealers just stalled, and Sam was able to do enough damage in combat, and that was that game.
Yep. And also, crucially, they did not do particularly well scoring primary points, which we were able to squeak out a victory because they neglected to score primary points, so we were able to edge them out that way.
I guess we could say that's where the Gene Stealers did their mark, is they held up the objectives from them. That's why we had a 30-point advantage on 20-point advantage on primary, which was what we needed to win. Otherwise, they were starting to score secondaries.
Yeah, in their last turn, they really cleaned up hard with their secondaries, but because we had that primary point advantage, it wasn't enough for them to come back.
Again, we didn't score turn 5 because of timing, so that's why the scores are a little low. Had we done turn 5, it would have come down to the wire on who would have won. We didn't really have time to see who it would have been, but man, it was probably a coin flip if it came down to turn 5, just because we didn't have a ton of models left, but we had a lot of secondaries we still could have scored. They had already done most of their secondary, and it was maybe they'd get enough primary points. But it was game 2. Again, really fun. All the players we played against are really nice, as is our community, so never have to complain there. But then we get into game 3 versus Chaos Knights and Death Guard. Now, these two guys are some of my, I would say, closer friends when it comes in the game community, outside of, Sam and Connor and Calvin, which you haven't seen yet. But anyway, so we saw their list and immediately thought, we are not going to survive to turn 2. Their list consisted of 2 Chaos Knights, one full guns and 1 full combat for Chaos Knights, 1 War Dog with the Warglaive and Melta, and then the Death Guard had 3 of the big tanks, the PBCs. What did they call it?
Plague Burst Crawlers.
Plague Burst Crawlers.
The ones with the mortars.
3 of them, 2 of the Bloat Drones with the Flamer Spitters, and then some characters. And I mean, it was a shooting gallery. They could see us, and the map wasn't a shooting gallery, but because of the army design, and it was like, we're not going to make it very far, well at all. Turn 1 happened for them.
Yep. This was actually, crucially, I rolled to see who got first turn, and for the first 2 games, we got first turn, and then on the 3rd game, we lost the roll-off, so they got to go first.
They got to go first, yeah.
I was like ready to throw in the towel at that point.
we thought we needed turn 1 and even to have a chance at this game, but turn 2 happened. I redeployed to try and protect as many Gene Stealers and Swarm Lord as best as possible, just because that's what happened. And I lost probably 20 20, 25 Gene Stealers turn 1. And you didn't take really any damage at all.
They were shooting at you entirely.
They took out most of the Gene Stealers. I lost half of my Gaunts turn 1. And Swarmy wasn't touched. But that was turn 1. They're like, okay, you know, it was pretty bad, but maybe we can come back. So then our turn 1 happened. And we didn't do anything.
So, yeah, my drop pod came in, dropped down, everybody popped out. I'm like, okay, this is it. We're going to do it. We're going to drop a knight. And we shot, and everything hit. And then I tried to wound, and everything whiffed.
Everything whiffed.
So
he had the 4-up invuln save too.
Right, yeah, he rotated ion shield. So I got, out of all of the multi-melta shots I put out, 1 went through, and I did like 4 wounds to a single knight.
Yep.
And then everything else was just, we couldn't shoot any of the Plague Burst crawlers. I think I was able to put, you know, because the knights were Titanic, they couldn't be screened by terrain. So I was able to put las cannons into one of the knights and did a couple more wounds there, I think.
I think you did 4 or 5 more wounds, which is crucial later on.
But yeah, it was not, it was not good.
So then their turn 2 happened, and I proceeded to go down to about 10 Gaunts, maybe less, and I had like 5 Gene Stealers left. And we had positioned ourselves in a way where Swarmy was like, all right, you know, all hands on deck. He was out there in the middle, ready to die, but try fighting. You had lost, what, 4?
It was I had 3 multi-meltas left from that squad and the captain. The sergeant was dead. The ablative wounds were dead. The drop pod was still kicking with its Stormbolter, but it was just the captain and those 3.
It was only 3 multi-meltas.
It was only 3 multi-meltas.
Wow, okay. That'll explain the next part more. Okay, so I didn't know. I thought you had all 4. You only had 3 multi-meltas.
I only had 3 multi-meltas left.
So then their turn 2 charge phase happened. And then your Redemptor at the time had done chip damage, but nothing really happened to it.
It had separated and it was going up the board, up the left flank to try and deal with 2 of the Plague Burst crawlers and the Warthog. And it was trudging along 8 inches a turn.
He was on his own mission, a solo mission pretty much. But their turn 2 charge phase was the biggest turnaround I have ever seen. It was the equivalent, if any of you are American football fans, to the Falcons blowing a 28-3 lead at halftime in the Super Bowl. I'm going to say it. It was the equivalent to that sort of turnaround. So first off, he charged your 3 tactical marines or Devastator
Marines
with his shooting knight, but I mean, he could easily kill them with it.
Right, easily. He could have just stomped on them. When he charged, I blew all 3 of the command points I had left to Overwatch and pop optimal repulsion doctrines. So my 3 Devastators were overwatching on a 4-up with a reroll of hit rolls of 1 from the captain. So as the knight came charging in, my 3 Valiant Devastators leveled their multi-meltas and dropped it on Overwatch.
Now we did, because if you guys have seen my videos, you know I do not like gotcha moves. We did tell them, and we did give them the choice to take back the charge, knowing what's coming their way. They said no. They feel confident with it. And 3 multi-meltas, so 6 shots. Dropped 20 wounds on a knight.
It was glorious.
It was insane. So not only was that like, holy crap, then his close combat knight charged into Swarmlord with, 20 wounds or something left. Okay, things are gonna go by Swarmy, whatever. He charges in and uses the stomps. So I'm like, I guess, use the stomps. He's still wounding on 3s, and he's got a lot of damage coming his way. I did have 5-up Feel No Pain, and I did have my 3-up Infone save. Dice rolls. I mean, he hit with most of them, and he wounded with most of them. Swarmy tanked almost all the 3-up saves. I re-rolled 1 of them with a command point re-roll, and then 5-up Feel No Pain the rest, and I only took 3 wounds from all of his stomp attacks. Swarmy then proceeded to fight back on 1 combat phase, paying the CP to reroll all failed wound rolls, not fighting twice or anything. Swarmy then proceeded to drop the knight, all 20 wounds it had remaining. I had a couple 6s in there, but we got 6 attacks. He did the full 18 wounds. He failed everything, hit and wounded with all. mortal wounds in addition. The knight died.
Yep. So
just like that.
In their charge phase, we dropped both of their big knights.
That was the most important part. In their charge phase, we dropped both knights. Now, what Swarmy did then was pay 1 command point for overrun, and then proceeded to move another 14 inches up the board. And now he's in threat range of a whole lot of other stuff. And that was turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then it came to our turn 2, where then Swarmy moved up. Your Devastators moved up.
Yep.
You paid the CP to keep them in Devastator Doctrine. They nuked another vehicle. Swarmy came into their home objective, sliced up a vehicle, sliced up a character, paid the CP to make him objective secured, and secured their home objective on the mission priority target.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 8 points for us because we held both ours and theirs. And then even more importantly, your Redemptor Dreadnought was on a murder mission.
Yeah. He was rocking his way, like I said, at that point in the game. He had detached from the Master of the Forge and the Contemptor Dreadnought, and he was moving up the flank, shooting everything he had. He dropped the War Dog that turn, and then he didn't make the charge yet, but he had dropped the War Dog, and he was moving up the left flank on his own.
But most importantly, he took that objective from them as well. So we now had primary objective control for pretty much the rest of the game, having them pinned in there. It was, I mean, it was the biggest turnaround. It came to the point where turn 5 happened, and they couldn't catch up. We thought they had it.
Yeah, even up to that point, I was under the impression that either we were still going to lose or it was going to be a very close victory.
Yeah, it was neck and neck, but it was, again, we thought we were done. There was just 2 sets of dice rolls that went totally our way and totally not their way, unfortunately. Because even if he made on the big night, he rolled 1 6-up save on his invulns. Just 1 6-up save would have changed the whole game. But because he failed all of his armor saves, not invul, all of his armor saves, the knight died.
Yep.
Even for you too, if he just made any of those invuln saves. So unfortunately for him, that was not great die rolling for him, and that swung the game. But it came out to an 87-3 victory. Wild. I really wish we had that one recording because you just wouldn't believe it. That
it had to be seen to be believed.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Doubles tournaments, we really enjoyed it. I think it's a great way, especially for newer players or people who aren't comfortable in a true competitive. Because this you could say it was competitive, but it wasn't. It was just 2 armies throwing down, having fun together.
Yep. And I am not a person who typically enjoys tournaments or competitive 40K, and I had a blast. I would definitely do a doubles tournament again. So if you have a similar format and you have a friend who you've always wanted to fight alongside, because I've never been on the same side as Craig.
It's true.
That was the first time that we have ever been allied in a mission. Usually it's me and Connor fighting against Craig. Never me and Craig, so that was fun as well.
It was fun, yeah, because we've done our Apocalypse games for 8 years now, and it's always been Imperium of some sort versus the Tyranids. And yeah, we've always been opposite teams.
Yep.
And we fought together and won it.
We won it.
Hopefully, I mean, I know talking with the guy who runs the tournaments there at the store, and we plan to do, those like once a quarter sort of thing, which I get it. I don't want to do all of my tournaments this way anymore. It is a little tricky because you're playing like 2 games at once because you don't want to go at the same time because things could interact differently. But I think once a quarter to get some people with smaller armies just, getting their toes wet at a shop. Maybe they want help from a friend who knows what's going on. Perfect. Next time, I probably won't even bring Tyranids. I will bring something else just for the fun of it, just to play a new army. Maybe I don't have 1,000 points of Sisters yet. Maybe I'll bring out my Black Dragons at 1,000 points. That would be a lot of fun. You guys haven't seen my Black Dragons. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'm glad. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this rundown. Let us know if you've done double tournaments, your opinions on them. If you haven't, I do consider trying them out. They're a lot of fun. And I don't think that's pretty much all we got.
Yeah, good time.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. Again, if you do want to support the growth of our channel, look down in the description. We've got Etsy and a membership that you can all join. All of that money goes right back into the growth of this channel. I've got a lot of ideas in my head of how I want to grow this. And it's just a matter of time before we try all of them. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.